All right, folks, welcome to Frontline. 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We're going to do things a little bit differently tonight because we're waiting for a briefing from the FBI field office in Detroit to provide an update on today's ramming incident at Temple Israel Synagogue in Michigan. But as we wait for that update, more news coming out of Old Dominion University in Virginia, where another Muslim, Mohammed Jahala, desperately, looked for an ROTC class to shoot up. He opened fire. He killed one person. He wounded two others. Now, the FBI is saying that sources claimed he yelled Allahu Akbar right before he shot. Okay. Just seconds ago, the FBI addressing how Jalla was taken out, though.
There were students that were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive.
Give those guys a medal. And the FBI is investigating it as an act of terrorism, obviously. But what do we know about this guy? You guys, this is going to blow your mind. Jalla, or however you say it, is a former Army National Guardsman, okay? He was a naturalized U.S. citizen from Sierra Leone, great place, who was arrested, by the way, in 2016 and convicted for providing material support to ISIS. Now, he was serving in prison. He was supposed to serve an 11-year sentence, actually. And in 2017, he went into jail. Then his charges faced a maximum of 20. But he was released in December of 2024 under Biden. Now, Jalla quit the Army National Guard after listening to sermons of former al-Qaeda leader Anwar al-Awlaki. It just gets even worse. Jalla also met with ISIS leaders in Africa. He was inspired by the Islamic attacks in Chattanooga, Tennessee, considered carrying out a Fort Hood-style attack. It's unbelievable. We have the same problem over and over again, and it just seems like we're not learning our lesson. We got to start vetting these people and getting them the hell out of this country. Former CIA analyst Mike Baker and Victoria Coates, Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security. All right, Mike, I say it every time. How many more times do we have to have this mistake happen? Not mistake, these attacks happen, immigration mistakes, I should say, before we learn our lesson?
Yeah, first of all, Carl, I wasn't an analyst. I wasn't smart enough to be an analyst. I was in operations. So we got to clear that up immediately.
Fair enough.
But look, you're right. We don't learn from even recent past, even recent history. And, we spent 4 years, a lot of people spent 4 years during the Biden administration talking about the problems that you encounter with not vetting people properly, whether they're coming across the border, whether you've picked them up for an interview because there's some suspected activity, whatever it may be. We just never seem to get around to this. And then the idea that he's already expressed all of this hatred towards the country, the desire to commit violent crimes, and then he's let out in 2024 after roughly 7 years, and not deported. He's a naturalized citizen. There are processes in place where you could remove that citizenship and send him on his way.
But Victoria, this goes back to the thing. Remember when Trump was, his first term, everybody freaked out when they called it a Muslim ban and all these things. But yet, if Trump had had his way with a lot of these bans of immigration, we might not have had some of these people like this.
No, we wouldn't have. And this has been going on for 25 years, since after 9/11. We'll be marking that 25th anniversary in September. And we tried so hard to be excessively tolerant of all of these people and let them all in. And, having somebody who's naturalized like this, who clearly has a program, he's going to join the National Guard. He's going to get trained on firearms. He's going to then make contact with ISIS in Africa. You have to be able to track these things and say that's probably not somebody we want roaming free in the United States. But then during the Biden administration, come one, come all, not only that, but we're going to let him out of jail. And so, unfortunately, this was predictable. But the question is, how many others are there?
Right. And again, Mike, we're waiting for the press conference right now out of Michigan to see what this guy. Apparently, this guy rammed a synagogue and he was put down by private security within that synagogue. But he had an explosive device. There you see right there what's happening. That's from a little while ago. Explosive device in the car that then ignited once he was already dead. And now we're sitting here trying to figure out, okay, 2 in 1 day, are they Iranian linked?
Yeah, look, they are in a sense, right? Whether they're directed by the state, by the Iranian regime, or they're inspired by it, or this is the the triggering point for them. You can argue that it doesn't matter. It is the conflict that's going on right now, and it is the Iranian regime that's causing this. It is always interesting. I'm not Poirot, right? But when you have someone ramming their car into a synagogue and carrying a weapon, the reports were that he had a weapon along with explosives, then you can start to, speculate to some degree on what the motives may be. But I understand it. The investigators have to be careful. You have to go through a process before you start releasing motive information and other things. But I get that. But enough's enough. We have to understand how serious this current threat is under this current environment with the conflict in Iran. And as Victoria pointed out, we don't know how many individuals there are, whether they're lone wolf or whether they may be state sponsored.
Right. Well, and Victoria, the other thing, too, is we're now hearing reports that this guy may have been from Dearborn, Michigan, which we know is a hotbed for a bunch of radical Islam stuff. Again, told you so comes to mind?
It does. And this wasn't any synagogue. This is the largest Reform synagogue, I think, in the country. So this is a major installation in a very heavily Jewish neighborhood. And I think we all have to realize we have an anti-Semitism problem here in the United States. And
well, I think that we're just seeing that Islam is anti-anybody.
Indeed. I mean, and that's the thing is, they don't ask for people's passports. They don't ask you what your religion is. But if they're going to ram a synagogue, clearly their intentions are to kill Jews, if possible. Right. So this is just something that we have allowed into our country, and we've been far too permissive towards it. So I don't think it's an accident that Old Dominion, that shooter was looking for U.S. military, an ROTC class to shoot up. This is going after a synagogue. To Mike's point, you never know until we get through this investigation, but this certainly does look like these are the types of targets that would be signaled to these folks by the Iranians.
Oh, sure. I mean, and we got the drop dead switches too. Some of these guys might have been given orders a month ago or something like that. The FBI, though, today also asking the public for any potential information on this guy, Jala. Roll this real quick.
We obviously are going to dig in, and this is why we need the public support to where he may have been before this, who he may have been in contact with, if he had any other supporters, anybody providing him information. So we have to track every single lead down, and that is exactly what the FBI will do. Every single lead, we're going to track down the veracity of the information and make sure that we have a full investigation with as much information, again, to ensure that there isn't anyone else that he may have been receiving support from as well. Yeah.
So we wanted you guys to hear all that. But I want to shift to something totally different here. And the media meltdown, both of you guys can relate to this, the media meltdown over 2 tanker explosions. It rattled the markets. But here's the problem. The facts are still coming in. Within minutes of those blasts, headlines were warning that, it was an attack on an American tanker near the Strait of Hormuz. Well, it was a critical oil choke point for the entire world. But markets reacted instantly to some false media reports. Stocks jumped. Oil went up like $10 a gallon or a barrel. But the reality is that the ships were actually 350 miles away from the Strait of Hormuz near Iraq's Basra port in the Persian Gulf. And they weren't U.S. Navy vessels. A Safe Sea Vishnu, doesn't sound super American to me. Registered under the Marshall Islands flag, often used international shipping companies, and the Zephyros was registered under a Maltese flag. However, the Vishnu is reportedly somehow linked to American-owned or something, so that's where they got it from. But, Mike, you leave it to the media, and they hyped this stuff up, and it had real-world consequences. It just drove up prices at the pump by probably 20 cents by hysteria and hype that wasn't even true.
I'm shocked that the media might have not quite gotten the facts right in their race to get there. Everybody's playing beat the clock with anybody who's got a phone nowadays, right? Yep. Because everybody's sort of a pseudo-journalist. But look, this is a real problem because, a lot of the shipping industry and the insurance industry, they're driven by perception, right? And so there is actually a real situation developing here whereby there have been some 16 vessels that have been targeted by projectiles, whether they're in the Persian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, or in and around the Strait. It doesn't matter because now you've got the shipping industry and the insurers saying, we are not accepting this risk. Yeah. And the problem is, unless you gain control of the Strait, and there are ways you could do that militarily, but if you don't gain control of the Strait, this is the key leverage point that the Iranian regime has.
Yeah.
And we can declare victory, and the White House can say we won, but it doesn't matter if the Iranian regime continues to control the strait. They will continue, in a sense, to control the global energy markets.
Victoria, I want to give you the last 20 seconds here.
Well, and in agreeing with Mike, we do need to get control of the situation. The good news is there are a couple of additional targets. Everyone's talking about Karg Island, for example, which is right there, which if we can get control of that, we stop the oil from coming out. But the last thing I'll say is China came out today and said they condemn these attacks. They want the oil to keep flowing out of the Persian Gulf. So they don't care about Iran. They don't care about whether Iran wins or loses the war. They just care about the oil. No one's coming to help the Iranians.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Mike, Victoria, appreciate it very much. All right, coming up, why don't the Dems ever learn from their mistakes? Rudy Giuliani going to be next.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Rob trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
I'm Rob. I run a sanctuary for tigers in Southern California. I've been working with tigers for over 30 years. I found that I was taking various supplements for my physical health. I wanted to take something for my brain as well. After taking Prevagen, I felt more confident. I felt more in the moment. I stopped taking Prevagen for a while, and I noticed a difference. I got right back on it. Prevagen really works.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Omaha Steaks semi-annual sale is back. Save 50% site-wide on America's best steaks, chicken, burgers, and more. All backed by our 100% guarantee. Right now, you'll get 12 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
All right, folks, while we're waiting for this press conference, what better time to talk about how bad at economics liberals are? And I always say you cannot legislate people into prosperity. It's never worked. It's always failed. And with all this war coverage going on, Democrats are using it as cover to push through all kinds of stupid tax hikes that we won't see or even notice until they're implemented. Folks, I hate to keep going back to New York, but it is like the shining example on the hill of the failure of liberalism. And this guy, Mamdani, the Ugandan socialist, who's never had a real job and suddenly found himself the mayor of the financial hub of the entire world, this morning, when he was asked about his corporate tax hike proposal, he said exactly why people are leaving and then doubled down on the very thing that makes them leave.
Amidst being in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we already see an exodus of working and middle-class New Yorkers. So I don't have a hesitation in asking those who make the most amount of money in the city or the most profits in the city to pay a little bit more so that everyone can actually stay in this city.
This is my issue with like the fair share talking point. These corporations are already paying a lot more than other places. Not a little bit more, a lot more. And then raising the taxes even more makes it actually less expensive for that company to pick up their whole business, move all their employees, build a new building in an entirely new state than it is to just stay put in New York City. This is everywhere. Liberals are in control. It's universal. The former CEO of Starbucks, this crunchy guy, Howard Schultz, who's like this guy is made for Washington. We told you about that the other day. Within hours of that state passing the millionaire's tax, because wealthiest can pay, they can pay a little bit more. He just grabbed all his stuff, got on his private jet, took his billions, and went to Florida. New York is bleeding jobs and companies because of taxes, and yet they keep raising them, thinking that like something's going to change here. Saying each time, oh, well, they can afford to pay a little bit more, for the greater good or what. No good ever comes out of it. And then their budget dude comes out in Manhattan this week and says this.
I also want to be cautious because we're relying on the financial sector to continue to show strength in order to meet our revenues. And if we undermine that, we could be in a deeper hole. So I want to be very careful that we don't do anything in our tax policy that would slow down this key sector that we need to pay for important programs for New Yorkers.
Wait, what do you mean you want to be careful? You're not being careful at all. They're already leaving. In the last 5 years, $1 trillion worth of capital has left New York. AllianceBernstein, huge asset management firm, moved headquarters from New York to Nashville, where there's no state income tax, no tax on wages, and much lower cost of basically everything. Elliott Management, massive hedge fund, picked up, moved to Florida for lower taxes. Goldman Sachs, which is headquartered here in New York, but it might not be for long, it just built an entire compound in Texas where there's no state income taxes. They moved a part of their asset management down there, saved them like $80 million a year just for that division. Cost of living is like 40% less down there. You don't have to worry about stepping over hobos, and mentally ill folks aren't out wandering the streets like zombies. There's less crime. Just last year, New York lost 5,000 businesses. 5,000. So asking those firms, oh yeah, just pay a little bit more. That cost the city $5.4 billion in lost revenue, because every time in the history of ever, when you raise taxes, you get less revenue without fail. But in the midst of this, this is the craziest thing. The New York City budget director, he couldn't testify at the council meeting like the last every other administration before him. You know why? Because he was fasting for Ramadan. I mean, congrats, New York City. You're no longer a real place. That's why Moody's downgraded New York City's credit rating, partly because you can't be unreachable on the budget during Ramadan. You work for the government. You got to be available, bro. It's also like they're massively economic illiterate.
Moody's has just issued a report, and they're revising their outlook for us, which is very unusual, from stable to negative. This is not a bond downgrade, but it's serious.
It is serious, but they will change absolutely nothing. There will be zero course correction. In fact, I guarantee you there's a bunch of snooty libs with their nose in the air behind closed doors, and they're just meeting the, how dare you downgrade us? We are the enlightened ones. We know things. We went to Ivy League. Not really. But in honor of all those bad policies and the loss of revenue and the mass exodus, you know what the city council's doing? They're giving themselves a raise. They currently make $148,000 a year, and after the raise, they're going to make as much as a sitting U.S. congressman that, ironically, is also equally as bad at balancing the budget. But the state isn't any better. Kathy Hochul is just as ridiculous as the mayor.
I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded.
Yeah. She's like, oh, cut me the checks. For what? Like, what do millionaires get in your state other than demonized? It's not patriotic to stay in New York. It's idiotic. Kathy, and then the sign language lady on the side, I don't even know if that's correct, but she drove them out. And also, what businessman is going to go down to Florida and play golf with their buddies? And imagine that, like, after a round of golf. Hey, successful business owners, do I got a deal for you? Move your business back to the place you just left. Pay more taxes. The cost of living is 50% higher. Maybe get mugged or raped. I don't know. Just don't call 911 during Ramadan. It's great. Come on back. Yeah, hard pass from anybody with half a brain. You want companies to come back? You're going to have to incentivize them. Just throwing this out there, too. You could lower taxes. I don't know, maybe not. Guys, there's like empirical evidence that liberal policies suck. Look, here are the top 4 states that people are leaving: California, New York, Illinois, and New Jersey. all Democrat states, with the number one reason people are leaving is because of taxes. And yet these liberals keep raising them. And where are they going? Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. States with limited government, maximum freedom, and less taxes. This is not hard. Yet some of the states with these liberal states are the largest states with bachelor's degrees in them nationwide. And they can't figure out why people are leaving. I mean, it would be a stand-up routine. But it doesn't stop at the state level. Bernie Sanders, he wants to make this nationwide. He's been trying to do this for like all 50 years he's been in office. But it was for millionaires and billionaires. But once he became a millionaire, he wants to only do it for billionaires now. The fundamental difference between actual Republicans and liberals is liberals believe the money that you take home is what the government allows you to keep. Now, real conservatives believe that the money the government takes is what we, the people, allow them to take before we dump tea in the harbor and start shooting people. The real thing, the thing that really gets me, though, and apparently lost on literally every single liberal, is if you taxed 100% of the revenue of every billionaire, you would barely have enough money to run the government for a month. If you took 100% of all of the total wealth of all the billionaires, confiscate and liquidate all of their stuff and their assets and their cash, you could only run the country for like half a year. And after that, there'd be no more capital to invest in business. There'd be no more growth. There'd be no more advancements and development and things like this. But what's even more mind-blowing to me, with even facing those statistics, at no point do either Republicans or Democrats think like, maybe we should stop spending so much money. All this stuff has been tried in cities and states, and we know what works and what doesn't work. We have the internet. Every time the result from taxes is people leave. Every time. What's even more staggering is that Democrats have access to all this data and they still run on these policies. And they're either just as stupid or count on the stupidity of the electorate because over 51% of these states keep putting them back in charge. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, sir, you must be having absolute heartache watching this city decompose.
Yeah, it's true. I have a sense of, it's hard to describe. Last night, for example, I had dinner with two very close friends, both of whom are very, very successful businessmen, both from New York, and they now live in Florida. And the entire conversation was almost exactly the things that you were saying. And I went through with them the budget decisions that I made in 1994. I did exactly the opposite of what he's doing. I had a deficit that proportionally was as big as his, maybe bigger.
Dinkins was horrible.
Yeah, and we also had even a lot more crime, and we had riots. And I decided that if I raised taxes anymore, it'd be an endless cycle. So I'd raise taxes. I'd kind of make believe I was plugging up the budget deficit. And then 2 years later, I'd have to raise them again. And then I'd have to raise them again because I'd keep losing people. And I decided maybe I'd do something novel. I would lower taxes. And I picked a tax called the hotel occupancy tax. I cut it in more than half. And within 2 years, I was collecting 3 times more revenue from it. And then I used that to do the biggest tax cuts New York City ever had. I actually was able to convince Democrats to vote for lower taxes because I could show them that by cutting the hotel occupancy tax in half, 3 years later, I had so many more people coming to New York, so many more conventions, that on the lower tax, I was making a fortune.
Wow. I mean,
and that's what you have to do. I mean, you have to have taxes, but they have to be like anything else. They have to be reasonable, rational, sensible. New York City spends more than the entire state of Florida.
That's so crazy. So, Mr. Mayor, I got to ask you this.
8 million people, 8.5. They have 22 million. And it isn't. I mean, a lot of it is corruption.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, as we see, digging into Minneapolis and a couple of other places.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I got to break in real quick. We have a press conference starting about this, this vehicle. We'll come back to you, sir.
You all set in the back? You're all balanced and stuff? Everybody good? Well, thank you for coming. I'm Mike Bouchard. I'm the Oakland County Sheriff. Excuse me, I'm kind of losing my voice. A lot going on today. I kind of want to give the 20,000-foot level and then we're going to have a number of speakers, both from the police department here, Chief Young, and from the FBI. Obviously, a horrific thing happened tragically here in Oakland County again. So we've been through a number of these things. And the one thing that I want to make sure the local community is aware of first and foremost is this community works together hand in glove. This community takes care of each other. And we have been communicating regularly. I have been texting the chief, not just in West Bloomfield, but every place that's got significant houses of worship, Jewish facilities, synagogues, temples, you name it, over the past 2 weeks. Obviously, what happens around the world sometimes affects us, so we have to think about it and be prepared for it. So we've been talking. I texted actually the head of security from the temple 2 days ago and communicated some information to him. So the first thing the community should know is that we not just today work together, we work together all the time. Our state, our federal, and local partners. Number one. Number two, we train. In our world, preparation is important. We hope and pray it never happens, but that's not a strategy. Preparation is. So all of us have been training together for many years for active shooters or active assailants, mass casualty events, and tragically we've had way more than our share. So that is ongoing and is in place. The third thing is important to note, no children and no staff were hurt. So we know there's evil in the world, and we know they only have to get it right once, and sometimes they do. They may not come on anybody's radar and they show up, but what happens when they show up, that's where training and preparation kicks in. The security staff did an amazing job, and you'll get some of the details on that, but they stopped the threat. No kids, no staff were hurt. Now, there were some injuries and things that had to be taken care of. One of the head of security was taken to the hospital. He got knocked down by the car when it breached the building, and we've had 30 law enforcement officers taken to the hospital for smoke inhalation. So a lot of our folks from my SWAT team and other agencies are still in treatment because that building became engulfed when the car, and we'll learn all of that through the investigation, why it became engulfed in flames, what was the ignition source, and I think the ATF is taking the origin of that source and origin of the fire. But in any event, what it did, it caused terrible, terrible smoke in that part of the building. And so when all of our people collectively went in that building to search out the threat, to remove innocent, a lot of them took in significant amount of smoke inhalation, and they're at the hospital being treated. So I also know you're going to have a lot of questions. A lot of those questions can't be answered at this point because it's super preliminary in the investigation. You know, all of us have thoughts of maybe why this happened, but we don't operate in a world where we can presume something. We have to determine it through investigation and specificity. And that is a work that's in progress as we speak. All of us will work seamlessly together to get the answers, and then it will be called what it is. Obviously, it's a hateful, terrible thing, right? But what drove this person into action, that has to be determined by the investigation. We can presume, but we have to find those facts, and that's going to happen over the next days in time. So we won't be able to get into a lot of the evidentiary questions, but we're available to make sure the community understands that we are still on a very heightened platform. And the most important thing that I would tell the community, don't be afraid to call us. If we're not your own local police department, call your local police department. We'd rather respond to 100 nothings than miss one real deal. The only way we prevent something like this is to get a call. Something's off with my son, my brother, my boyfriend, whatever the case. I saw something posted. That's the only way we interdict, because people are more likely to see or hear something before us. So if you see or hear something, you have to communicate that, and then we can intervene and hopefully prevent. But if we can't prevent, then we respond and mitigate. That's what happened today, and I think based on the early information, it happened flawlessly. So with that, I'll kick it over to my friend Chief Young from West Bloomfield Police Department.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Dale Young. I'm the police chief of West Bloomfield. I want to share with you how we got to where we are today. So today we received a 911 call which came in around 12:19 p.m. It was about an active shooter situation at Temple Israel where the individual drove into the building. West Bloomfield officers arrived on scene under 5 minutes. Temple security officers...
All right, we're going to continue monitoring this. They haven't offered any information yet about the guy who actually drove his car into there. Allegedly, some reports are saying that he had a weapon in the car, an incendiary device that ignited and obviously filled the room with smoke. They talked about the only injuries really were the smoke inhalation injuries, and everybody was able to thankfully kind of get out of the way due to their private security. The police obviously were very thankful to the community for working together. The chief mentioned that he had been working with the synagogue for quite some time on security concerns, so it's a regular communication. He did say, if you have information, bring it forward. They said, look, call us. We're here. We're part of the community. They want to help. So if they come with any more information on that, we will bring it right to you. All right, folks, coming up. So not only will the Democrats not vote for the Save America Act, but they're now vowing to resist the FBI's efforts to seize 2020 ballots and information from the election, even if they got a court order. I mean, why would that be? Attorney at Judicial Watch, Christina Bobb, going to join me next on that.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's All-American customer service team is standing by.
Hello, I'm Franklin Graham. Jesus said, come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Maybe you've been burdened by the sins of your life and the mistakes, and you just would love to have rest for your soul. Well, I want you to know that God loves you. He made you. He created you. And he sent his son, Jesus Christ, from heaven to this earth to take your sins. That's right. He took your sins to the cross. He died and shed his blood on a cross. And he was buried. But on the third day, God raised him to life. And if we are willing to repent, turn from our sins, tell God that we're sorry, and by faith, believe on Jesus Christ, and invite him to come into our hearts, to take control of our life, God will forgive us and cleanse us. And you can have a new life, a new beginning, starting today, right now. Invite him to come into your heart. God bless you.
You moved in. You nested.
Hey, what are you doing?
You partied. You cuddled. You made egg rolls. You slept in. Or tried to. And you kept growing. Now it's time for the next chapter. With Open Door, get an all-cash offer for your home in 24 hours. Because saying goodbye should be the hardest part. Move into your future with Open Door.
What if you could have shades like these for a fraction of big brand prices? With Shady Rays, you can. We're an independent company, so we do things differently. We offer high-quality polarized shades for a reasonable price. And we personally replace shades that get lost or broken. So far, we've racked up over 300,000 five-star reviews. I founded Shady Rays so that we can have sunglasses that stand up to whatever life throws at us. Order now and get 20% off site-wide at shadyrays.com.
All right, so the SAVE Act is still not passed, probably because the Democrats and even some Republicans want to keep illegals in our elections. Hell, they won't even let the government investigate the 2020 election fraud. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers is reportedly really ticked off, saying that he's his administration is going to resist any efforts by the FBI to seize voting documents if federal authorities expand their probe of the 2020 presidential election in Wisconsin, even with the judicial watch. Like, you might not have a choice, Tony. Christina Bobb, attorney at Judicial Watch and author of Defiant. Christina, they can't really do that. I mean, this is the party that was like, well, rule of law.
Yeah, well, I mean, unless they want to face an obstruction of justice charge. I mean, the problem that the feds are going to have is if they really do want to go back to the 2020 election, a lot of those records are probably gone. States are required to keep them for 22 months. We're long past 22 months. So, I don't know how much is left. That's a whole issue in and of itself. There appears to be some left because Tony Evers is willing to fight for it. So good luck. We'll see what happens. I'm glad they're at least trying to look into it.
Yeah, well, they can, at the very least, they can look at the voter rolls and see if there's dead people on them and were they on them in 2020. That's kind of an easy one. Wisconsin's voter rolls are the absolute best because they have about 5 million people over the age of 18, which you would think would be eligible voters, and they have about 7 million people on their voter rolls. So that's a great place to start. Okay. Low-hanging fruit. I'm not a mathematician, but I can figure that one out. But about a month after the FBI seized the ballots from the 2020 in Fulton County, the FBI expanded that criminal investigation to suspected election irregularities, secretly obtaining a large tranche of voting records from Arizona's largest county with a recent grand jury subpoena. And look, you are still currently indicted in Arizona. And you never went there, but you're indicted there. And they said, you're spreading misinformation.
Right. This reeks to high heaven. The thing that I love about the Arizona case is they actually pulled 2024 records, which Donald Trump won. So you don't have these cries of, oh, they're trying to overturn a lawful election. No. This was a grand jury, meaning voters, people of Arizona, Maricopa County, found probable cause to believe that there were enough problems to issue a warrant for the 2024 elections for Donald Trump, who they likely voted for. So if we really want to get down to the brass tacks about what's going on in Maricopa County, this could do it.
Yeah. The fallout would be insane. Even if they proved something in 2024, it would be insane. If Trump won by this much, but he actually should have won by this much. It would vindicate certainly people like you. But this new Marist poll, which is actually insane, real quick, it found that 66% of Americans are confident that their government will run a fair election. 34% say no, not at all. I'm thinking if you're even off by one, what if that one is my vote?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, it kind of depends on where you're at. If you're looking at the national presidential election, that's one thing. If you're looking at your local election, a lot of the local elections are harder to cheat on, so it depends on
not in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think people, a lot of the information out there is very confusing. So the point is we need clean elections. We need more than half the people to agree and to feel that our elections are safe and confident. We don't have that, which is why we have the Save America Act before Congress, which the Republicans are refusing to pass. So we have a bit of a mess on our hands.
Yeah. Shocker. Politicians creating a mess. Christina Bobb, you're the best.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, the day after two ISIS-inspired terrorists, Mamdani hosts a terrorist sympathizer, and now he's turned New York City Hall into a Ramadan celebration. More in our Culture Clash next.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Pump up the volume.
Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
When an earache strikes, you need relief fast. Introducing Earache RX from Dr. Easy, the makers of Wax RX. Not just another eardrop, Earache RX is real medicine with 4% lidocaine. Earache RX has the maximum strength available without a prescription. Strong enough for adults, yet gentle enough for kids. Earache RX gives you fast relief that starts working on contact. Don't wait for an earache to strike. Get the power of real medicine. Get Earache RX at these fine retailers.
You're going to hear some words. Repeat those words.
Okay.
Yard.
Yard.
Day.
Day.
Hi, Mom. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that I love you.
Now tell me if you can hear this. Hi, Mom.
Oh.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way. Our superior expertise is backed by licensed professionals that take the time to get to know you and your needs. Book your free test. Call 1-800-498-7146. Your care is on us, from your first hearing test to free unlimited servicing, cleanings, and checkups. We offer solutions that transform hearing, like our nearly invisible design, custom made for comfort. Book your free test. Call 1-800-498-7146. Stay connected to your loved ones. Unlock our best deals of the year. Call 1-800-498-7146.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Hey, for ever, Democrats have just been screaming separation of church and state when it comes to Republicans and Christianity, even though we're a Christian nation and our motto is in God we trust, one nation under God, that kind of old thing. The reality is when these liberals talk about separation of church and state, what they really mean is every other religion is allowed except for Christianity. Here's what the inside of New York City Hall looks like under Mamdani.
Make some of that?
This all comes after he just hosted a terrorist sympathizer for dinner at the Gracie Mansion the night before. After two ISIS-inspired terrorists tried to throw makeshift homemade Claymore devices at peaceful protesters in New York City. Host of Ungoverned on LFA TV, Shawn Farash, and Newsmax contributor Kay Smythe. Shawn, make it make sense.
It will never make sense. Obviously, we've seen what radical Islam or Islam in general has in terms of its, people tell us it's a religion of peace. And while there may be peaceful Muslims out there, I think we're seeing a lot of them who are not very peaceful. Folks who are throwing, CNN said a couple teenagers in Pennsylvania just walking around and happened to get arrested. Their lives changed drastically. Well, it's because they threw a nail bomb into a crowd of people. You have a shooter in Michigan today, or the guy who drove into the synagogue. You have a shooter down in Virginia today, a radical Islamist who pled guilty to providing material support to ISIS. These people are not compatible with our civilization. They're not compatible with our culture, and we should not pretend like they are.
Yeah, okay. But if we don't wake up fast, we could end up like your former home, the UK, where we talked about this earlier in the week, where the Labour Party is literally labeling its own country's flag as racist.
That really doesn't surprise me at this point. The level of brainwashing that we've seen in the UK is sad because people are absolutely comfortable almost in favor of completely destroying like the British Empire, British culture, because they're too scared to be called racist because they don't realize that they've been invaded. It's funny, Carl, like a lot of the conversations that I've had in the last week since all this stuff has started kicking off with Iran is now British people are suddenly terrified of the flood of probably like actual refugees, maybe actually some women and children for once, that might end up on the shores of Britain, because Europe isn't certainly going to put up with them anymore at this point. So we've seen just as many attacks then, but it's taken until now. And I'm like, guys, you guys got invaded like forever ago and you're just picking up on it now. This is what happens when you're more scared of words than you are of actual action. And yeah, if the flag disappears, wouldn't surprise me. That's what happens when you have spineless losers in charge.
Shawn, you know, I want to get both of you on this one real quick. There is now in the UK, the Boy Scouts have introduced an Islamophobia awareness badge where one of the requirements is you have to go attend a mosque to get this badge. Can I get a badge for not going to a mosque?
You should get a badge for not going home. First of all, I mean, we want to do equality. Is there a Christianophobia badge too, and like a Judeophobia badge too, or is it only Islam? Because if that's the case, then clearly you're pandering to a group of people, and you're not actually educating anybody. As if the only religious persecution that exists in the world is Islamophobia. As if that's the only group that's discriminated against. As if those are the only victims. That's such nonsense. And again, if we're talking about equality, if it exists for every group, whatever, fine. I probably don't agree with it because we shouldn't be dividing people into boxes. But if it doesn't, that's not equality, and it should be changed.
Okay, last 15 seconds to you on this.
Okay, so I actually was a scout in the UK. I went from the bottom to the actual top, like Explorer Scout. The Explorer Scout motto is "A scout is no fool." Clearly, they've forgotten that, and I'm embarrassed for them. And I'm sad because that was an institution I was really proud to be a part of. I guess not so much anymore.
I remember you showed me a picture of that once. That was actually quite funny. Shawn, Kay, we appreciate it. All right, coming up, she's back, or at least trying to come back. Tiffany Hayard, the dictator of Dolton, Illinois, is changing her stripes for public reasons. We'll see about that next.
What if you could have shades like these for a fraction of big brand prices? With Shavy Rays, you can. We're an independent company, so we do things differently. We offer high-quality polarized shades for a reasonable price. And we personally replace shades that get lost or broken. So far, we've racked up over 300,000 five-star reviews. I founded Shavy Rays so that we can have sunglasses that stand up to whatever life throws at us. Order now and get 20% off site-wide at shavyrays.com.
Power of disease.
$15 million dogs and counting know. Simparica Trio offers triple protection against heartworm disease, ticks and fleas, and intestinal worms, all with one monthly chew. This drug class has been associated with neurologic side effects, including seizures. Use with caution in dogs with or without a history of these disorders. Don't just protect, triple protect.
Prices keep climbing. Groceries, gas, everything.
I know, even with a new administration, fixing policies, keeping the economy in line will take time.
I'm so glad we signed up for Noble Gold Investments Value Lock program.
We tied our savings to gold. It's an asset that keeps pace with inflation. When prices go up, so does gold.
So when we need our cash, the value's still there.
Secure your savings with Noble Gold's Value Lock. Call 877-646-5347 or visit noblegoldinvestments.com.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work,
Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
You remember this lady, Tiffany Henyard? She's the former Democrat mayor of Dolton, Illinois, who was accused of misusing taxpayer dollars on like luxury trips, a $1 million police detail, and allegedly spent $43,000 on Amazon in a day. Well, I don't even know how you do that. But Tiffany is back on the ballot. This time, she went down to Fulton County, Georgia. She's running as a Republican now. Now, Henyard aiming for a seat on the county's Board of Commissioners in May. I'm sure she'll be met with open arms by Fannie Willis. Hell, maybe her and Fannie and Nathan Wade, they can take like some lavish taxpayer-funded jaunt to South Beach and drink Grey Goose and eat caviar and build a White House for working 26 hours a day. Who knows? Common Sense Cowboy Patrick Dorinson, author of the Common Sense Cowboy's Guide to Life. Patrick, you'll vote for her, right?
Yeah, boy, look, she's going down there, like you said. She's going to join Fannie Willis and Stacey Abrams. Maybe they can get Kamala Harris to move down to Georgia, too, and they can have a fourth for a game of bridge. Look, at least if she runs as a Republican, Carl, that's probably the only way, if she got elected, that a Republican could ever get on the Fulton County Commission.
She's running unopposed.
Then fantastic. We get the first Republican on the Fulton County Commission in a long, long time. And, who knows? From that, a majority could be built in about 100 years. So, good luck to her. She stole money there. Maybe she can go down and steal money in another city. And there's a lot more money down there.
Yep. Well, not after Trump sues him and gets what he's owed.
Yeah.
Minnesota, just go figure, Senate Democrats just voted to send tax dollars to counties and tribal lands to help residents cover their rent. $40 million to people who say that they're too afraid to leave their homes due to ICE's recent activity. But you do need to require proof of citizenship to receive this assistance, Patrick.
Well, hallelujah. You need a proof of citizenship to get some money from the federal government. Boy, alert the media. We've got a flash up there in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Look, even the idiots in Minnesota understand that this is not going to fly in the rest of Minnesota. Because, we hear about Minneapolis all the time. We never hear about, all the other places in Minnesota who are not going to put up with this nonsense.
Well, and they actually don't need proof of citizenship for that. That's why they're afraid to. I don't know. I would not provide any assistance to people who are not Americans. But anyway, here's another one. Hard workers, all right? Ranch guy, yourself, you know this. They released a list of the top hardest working states in the United States, and no surprise, they're Republican states. North Dakota, Alaska, South Dakota, Texas, but somehow Hawaii made it in the top 5, and there's like not another Democrat one below that. But I don't know, man. I mean, could this be a turn for Hawaii?
Yeah, I guess there is a lot of hard work going on in Hawaii, servicing the tourists and making sure that the beaches are clean of homeless people. But I would never expect that. It's such a laid-back place. I guess all the folks working in the restaurants and the hotels are probably working their tails off for all the people that fly over there to spend time on the beach. And I guess it's also the people working in the sugarcane fields and the pineapple fields. So maybe that's true.
Yeah, it is interesting, though, Patrick, that the #1 study over 75 years showed that hard work and chores are the thing that bring up great adults. Patrick Dorinson, pleasure, sir.
Who'd have thought, huh?
Yeah, weird, right? Working hard. Yeah. All right. Keep it here, folks. Back in just a sec.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, owner of the company that sells an incredible nutritional supplement called Amino 150. I'm celebrating my 92nd birthday in excellent health and condition because I've been consuming 70 minerals and 80 other nutrients found in Amino 150. I don't have arthritis, diabetes, heart problems, dementia, or anything else. My blood pressure average is 119/72. My PSA is 0.00. I can still run, jump, and climb a ladder, dance for hours, or do anything else I want to do. Now, if you want to live a ripe old age and still have all of your marbles and muscles, you should try Amino 150. Regardless of your age, chances are you're not in excellent health because you lack many minerals in your diet. Now, don't hesitate any longer. Try Amino 150 so you can surprise your doctor the next time you get a physical. This incredible food supplement may be the best supplement in the world. Thank you and God bless.
You know, WeatherTech isn't just for new cars. No matter how old or new your car is, it deserves WeatherTech. With laser measured protection for practically every car on the road, we've got you covered. Because messes don't care what year your car is. Whatever you're driving, we got it. We got it. We got it. Got it. We got it. We got it. We've got it. Oh, we got it. No matter what year your vehicle is, it deserves WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection today at WT.com. We're WeatherTech. You know we got it.
Healthcare is broken. America's health share is different. We believe healthcare should be aligned with your values, empowering individuals to direct their own care. Personalized preventative care with cutting-edge services, early detection, and root cause resolution. No skyrocketing premiums, no surprise bills, no financial uncertainty. This is not insurance. This is the health freedom model. Join us. Scan the QR code to get started.
Does it ever feel like society is going up in flames, yet people don't have the strength to care? There's a hidden reason for that, and it may surprise you. Testosterone levels in American men are at an historic low, and it's testosterone that gives men the energy to be men. Support your own natural testosterone production with Chalk. Go to chalk.com/TV1 for your $17.76 discount. Chalk's all-American customer service team is standing by.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
All right, that presser cut us a little short today, so we're going to do comments for Carl tomorrow night. But imagine walking into a studio and being on national TV and not even reviewing remotely anything you're about to talk about and not knowing anything about anything that's supposed to be on your show. Well, that happened with this woman, Abby Phillips, not once, but twice. And then she had to make an on-air apology about it because she got, Rob, I look at these people and I'm like, there is a huge swath of the country that gets news from people like that who read something that a 25-year-old who also didn't know.
Right, and couldn't even think on the fly to amend it. I mean, obviously, those kids weren't throwing bombs at Mamdani. That's an ideologue she's got as a producer that's trying to make Mamdani look like a victim in all this, and Islam is not the problem. And then she just fell for it. That's what was disappointing. I don't think she meant to say it, but it's like, you got to be better than that.
But she did.
To think on your head, and she did say it.
Yeah.
Carl, good to see you.
Word, man.
I'm going to be back for comments for Carl tomorrow night.
Well, you do work here, so.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm coming just for that. Good to see you.
Later.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.